This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at Agilent, a Fortune 500 company known for providing top-notch testing solutions to cannabis and hemp testing labs worldwide. Are you considering testing your cannabis in-house for potency? Agilent is giving away a free 1260 HPLC system for 1 year. If you're a cultivator, processor, or cannabis testing lab, you may qualify for this giveaway. By using Agilent's 1260 HPLC for potency testing, you'll gain immediate access to your data, know when to harvest, and increase your sample throughput. Don't miss out on this 1260 HPLC giveaway. Swing over to bit.ly.com/cannabis-contest to answer a few questions to enter to win. Again, that's bit.ly.com/cannabis-contest. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Wednesday, March 17th, 2021, and you're tuned in to episode 1032 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We lead off things today in Connecticut, where yesterday House Speaker Matthew Ritter told reporters during a press conference that lawmakers in his state were close to agreeing on legislation to legalize adult-use marijuana. House Speaker Ritter said that he, quote, wouldn't say we're close, but we're not far off either, unquote, in referring to plans over a legalization bill. While Connecticut isn't one of the larger states in the U.S., with just over 3.5 million citizens, it does sit in between Massachusetts and New York, so a fully legal adult use system in the state would have an oversized impact regionally. Pop over to Kyle Yeager's story on this one for all the details and add Connecticut to states you should have on your industry radar. As we always do, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. Story number 2 is another Kyle Yeager pickup, this time swinging out west to Washington State, where Governor Jay Inslee was recently asked how things have been going for his state since it legalized marijuana. You might remember that Washington State was actually the very first state to allow for adult-use marijuana sales back in 2012, so Governor Inslee has a relatively deep history to speak from. Governor Inslee was speaking during an online event held by Politico and said, when asked about Washington's marijuana legalization, quote, what I would say is that our experience in Washington has been uniformly positive on any way you score this, from a reduction of unnecessary law enforcement and criminal activity that wasn't really benefiting our community, on creating jobs in a new industry, on giving people more freedom in their personal decision-making with no demonstrable horrendous health impacts. By any measure, it has been a very successful enterprise, unquote. And awesome to hear. Firming up his grasp on today's headlines, Kyle is back with another marijuana moment, this time jumping right over the border from Washington State to Oregon, where Governor Kate Brown has announced the formation of a 17-member advisory board tasked with helping to implement legal therapeutic psychedelic mushrooms. Oregon made history back in the fall when its citizens passed via ballot measure an initiative to make the use of psilocybin mushrooms in therapy legal. Measure 109 passed in November with a healthy margin and called for the formation of an advisory panel to work out best standards and practices for the use of psilocybin mushrooms. This is pretty groundbreaking stuff, especially if you consider that the eyes of the other 49 U.S. states will eventually fall on this system for lessons and examples. As announced by Governor Brown, the panel is made up of various stakeholders, including an expert on harm reduction, doctors, psychologists, and researchers. The panel will work over the spring and early summer and submit a report on how they think the state's legal psilocybin program should work by June 30th. Another good one to read in full if you need more detail. Kyle's story has a timeline of Oregon's psilocybin work, as well as a full list of the advisory panel. Those are the top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Agilent, a Fortune 500 company known for providing top-notch testing solutions to cannabis and hemp testing labs worldwide. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Agilent is giving away a free 1260 HPLC system for 1 year. If you've been thinking about testing your cannabis in-house for potency, then this is for you. Swing over to bit.ly.com/cannabis-contest to enter for a chance to win. When you use Agilent's 1260 HPLC system, you get instant access to all the right data about your marijuana, which narrows down exactly when you should harvest. That means you don't spend any more time growing your cannabis than you need to, and that you'll harvest it at its peak. One more time, swing over to bit.ly.com/cannabis-contest to enter your company in for a chance to win 1 free year's use of Agilent's 1260 HPLC system. Big thanks to everyone over at Agilent for the support that helps us keep the news lights on. All right, time for the Blitz. California is giving $15 million in grant money to 10 cities and counties from the proceeds of legal marijuana sales as part of the state's social equity program. The money will be used to support social equity businesses and entrepreneurs through grants and zero-interest loans, and is the third chunk of such funds paid out by California since the program began in the fall of 2019. Since then, the amount of money given out to social equity programs in California totals $55 million. We leap to Michigan for a story similar in tone to our previous headline, with the city of Ann Arbor receiving $476,000 in funds from the state as proceeds from legal cannabis sales taxes. City councilors voted just on Monday to have all such funds be used to pay for restorative justice, public safety, and community programs. This is a super story and one that we'll see a lot more of as legal cannabis sales tax funds continues to flow widely and deeply. According to a poll out of Florida, voters in that state strongly support legalizing adult use marijuana and expanding the current medical cannabis program, and are just as opposed to the idea of limiting the strength and potency of cannabis products sold on the market. The activist group Florida for Care commissioned a poll that found that just around 60% of respondents are in favor of adult use marijuana and the expansion of medical cannabis, with the same percentage against THC limits. That's good news to hear in a state where there is currently a push by prohibitionist lawmakers to restrict the amount of THC in legal cannabis products, an idea that is widely acknowledged as pretty stupid by anyone who has any kind of understanding of marijuana. One happy note on this story is the rise in the support of legal medical marijuana seen in Florida, with the amount of people in support of the state's medical program rising from 71% in 2016 to 76% today. Deborah Borchard has the first of 2 financial reports on the day, with multi-state cannabis operator Columbia Care releasing numbers for the fourth quarter ending December 31st, as well as for the full year of 2020. For the fourth quarter of last year, Columbia Care pulled in revenue of $81.7 million, up substantially from $24.5 million it made in Q4 2019. The company's loss for the fourth quarter was also up over the same period in 2019, with $73 million in net losses for 2020 versus a net loss of $28 million the previous year. For the full year of 2020, Columbia Care made $197 million in revenue, up from 2019's haul of $78.8 million. The net loss for last year was $133 million against 2019's net loss of $102 million. As usual, you can pop over to Green Market Report for more here if you need it. New Cannabis Ventures has the second set of financials that we'll be covering today. Canadian company Village Farms International also released its Q4 and full year 2020 fiscal results, with Q4 sales of $47.4 million, a net loss of $7 million, and an adjusted EBITDA loss of $500,000. That compares to 2019's Q4 numbers of $33.1 million in sales, a net loss of $7.2 million, and a negative EBITDA loss of $7.5 million. So the growth numbers are all in the right direction. For the full year of 2020, Village Farms had sales of $170 million, up 18% from 2019, a net loss of $11.6 million, up from 2019's net loss of $2.3 million, and finally a positive adjusted EBITDA of $7.4 million, up 722% over 2019's total. Even though industrial hemp was first made federally legal in 2018's Farm Bill, it has taken a lot of time for the federal government to shake out all the details for how the whole system will work. That is perhaps no more apparent for the industry than when it comes to banking, where industrial hemp farmers and companies are finding that it's still difficult to find banking solutions, even though they are just as legal as companies selling corn. The Columbus Dispatch has a good story looking at the issue framed through Ohio hemp farmers that is just as applicable in any other state. Not a bad one to poke around if you have hemp on your news radar. Finally, for today, the state of Illinois will soon see the opening of its first legal marijuana consumption bar. The Luna Lounge of Cesar, Illinois is set to open at the end of April and will have space where customers can use marijuana they bring in themselves. There will be food trucks outside selling food and drink, though no alcohol will be served. Public consumption space for legal cannabis is one of our industry's next horizons to crack, so another storyline you might want to have in your news quiver. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Agilent, and to our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Jay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.